For me, behind bars, the way I was treated, I was taken to a prison with quite a low Muslim population. What I'm known for is criticising Islam, so there's been many planned attempts to murder me and kill me in this country. Not seeing or speaking to anybody, and they used the reason that I was in danger. Now, they would have had risk assessments before I went there. I was purposely taken to be put in danger so that then that reason can be used to then put me on solitary confinement. And it took months before I got the opportunity to go before a judge. Once the judge heard what had happened in the trial, we found so many illegal and wrongdoings within this kangaroo court.
Did you know that Tommy Robinson spends 21 hours a day locked in a cell despite being a civil offender? This isn't a scene from a dystopian novel. It's happening right now in a British prison. But why is a man convicted of contempt of court facing such harsh treatment? And what does this mean for free speech in the UK? Join us as we dive into the controversial case of Tommy Robinson and the questions it raises about justice and personal liberties in modern Britain. Tommy Robinson's journey from a working-class lad in Luton to a controversial national figure is a tale of grassroots activism turned media spectacle.
This is a message to each of you who are thinking about the 26th of October. Maybe you're worried, maybe you're scared. Maybe you think you might lose your job, maybe you think you might get put in prison. Let's send a message to the world, to Keir Starmer especially, that the fight is not gone, okay? Not in us anyway. I am travelling back to the UK for literally the fight of my life. Men right now are fighting for their lives in prison, who have been falsely imprisoned, unlawfully imprisoned, pressured and forced and blackmailed to plead guilty to crimes they haven't committed. All of this will come up in our documentary, which will premiere on the 26th of October.
Growing up in a town plagued by socio-economic challenges, Robinson's worldview was shaped by his surroundings. But how did this ordinary bloke become a household name? It all kicked off with Robinson's early activism against what he perceived as the threat of Islamic extremism. His message struck a chord with many who felt their concerns were being ignored by the mainstream. Yet, as his popularity grew, so did the target on his back. Robinson's unfiltered approach and confrontational style won him a legion of supporters, but also an army of critics. The formation of the English Defence League in 2009 marked a turning point in Robinson's trajectory. What started as a response to the rise of Islamic extremism in the UK quickly morphed into a national movement. But was the EDL a genuine grassroots uprising or a powder keg of racial tensions waiting to explode? Public opinion was split, with some viewing it as a legitimate voice for free speech, while others condemned it as a far-right organization inciting violence. As Robinson's profile skyrocketed, so did media attention and controversy. His Facebook page reportedly amassed over 100,000 followers in short order, a testament to the growing interest in his provocative views. But with fame came infamy, and Robinson soon found himself walking a tightrope between being a voice for the voiceless and a pariah in the eyes of many. What made Robinson's message resonate with so many? Perhaps it was his ability to tap into deep-seated societal tensions that many preferred to ignore. His rise to prominence revealed uncomfortable truths about immigration and integration in Britain that mainstream political discourse often sidestepped. But as Robinson's influence grew, so did his legal troubles.
Tommy Robinson has been jailed at Woolwich Crown Court for 18 months after admitting contempt of court.
I mean, he's effectively been jailed for repeating false allegations he made over the past 2 years that were in breach of a court injunction. He, for 2 years he didn't, and then he started repeating them in online interviews and in a film. He made a 90-minute film that was shown a number of times.
Was this the result of his actions or targeted persecution? His history of run-ins with the law began as early as 2005 with a conviction for assault. Critics argue that his public speeches and actions often incited hatred and violence, while supporters view the mounting legal challenges as politically motivated attempts to silence a dissenting voice. As efforts to silence Robinson intensified, one thing became clear: his controversial rise had exposed fault lines in British society that could no longer be ignored. But was this just the beginning of his troubles? The stage was set for a dramatic fall that would test the limits of free speech in modern Britain. Tommy Robinson's crusade against grooming gangs may have struck a chord with many, but it came at a steep cost to his personal freedom. His confrontational style, which had propelled him into the national spotlight, began to push legal boundaries. The question on everyone's lips: did Robinson's zeal for exposing uncomfortable truths lead him to cross the line between activism and criminality? The contempt of court case became a flashpoint in the ongoing debate over free speech in the UK. Robinson's supporters argue he was being silenced for exposing grooming gangs, while critics point out that his actions nearly caused the prosecution of a major grooming gang to collapse. Was this about justice, or was it an attempt to muzzle a troublesome voice? As Robinson found himself behind bars, his supporters cried foul over his treatment. Reports of his time in solitary confinement raised eyebrows across the political spectrum. Is this standard procedure for a civil offender, or is Robinson receiving exceptional treatment? The UK Ministry of Justice claims that individuals posing a risk to the good order of the establishment may be separated from the wider population. But Robinson's supporters aren't buying it, arguing that he's being subjected to mental torture under conditions far removed from the open prisons, typically housing civil offenders. The financial toll of Robinson's legal battles has been devastating. Once flush with millions in donations from supporters, he now finds himself declaring bankruptcy. At a legal hearing, he cited losses of $100,000 from gambling, raising questions about the management of funds donated to his cause. Has Robinson become a martyr for free speech, or a cautionary tale of hubris and mismanagement? Robinson's imprisonment highlights the razor-thin line between activism and criminality in modern Britain. His case forces us to grapple with uncomfortable questions. At what point does challenging the status quo become a criminal act? And how do we balance the need for law and order with the right to free expression? As Tommy Robinson sits in his cell, the debate rages on. Is this the end of his controversial story, or just another chapter in a saga that has divided public opinion? One thing is certain: Robinson's fall from grace has become a litmus test for the state of free speech in the UK, leaving us to wonder whether we're witnessing the silencing of a dissident voice or the just consequences of reckless actions. Tommy Robinson's journey from street activist to prisoner lays bare the tangled web of free speech in modern Britain. His case isn't just about one man's controversial views, it's a mirror reflecting our society's struggle with expression and state power. As Robinson sits in solitary confinement, public perception remains divided. Many Brits worry that free speech is under threat, especially for those challenging mainstream narratives. The government's approach to regulating speech, particularly around figures like Robinson, has drawn criticism. Pending legislation could further muddy these already murky waters. It's a balancing act between security and liberty that seems more precarious than ever. Robinson's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. When does activism cross the line into criminality? How much power should the state wield in controlling speech? As the debate rages on, one thing is crystal clear. The tension between personal freedom and societal order isn't going away anytime soon. It's a tightrope we're all walking, whether we realize it or not.